Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm recording today on the land of the Anishinaabeg, Odawa, and Mississauga people, which is about 3 hours north of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. If you are new here, welcome. You might not know that I'm also a mom of 3, a yoga teacher, and the founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. And if you are a returning listener, you know how things go around here. This podcast was created for you, the yoga teacher, so that each and every week you can be connected to information and ideas that are going to support you as you build your yoga business. And that's why I'm really excited about today's guest and today's podcast topic. We are going to bring Shelly Prosko in here to talk about her balance flow yoga, what she's offering. I'm really excited because all of you are invited, and why this is super important for yoga teachers, yoga students, and also our pelvic health professionals. And before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor for today's episode, OfferingTree. This is an online platform that really helps to simplify your yoga business, especially if you do anything online. So I use their software. Actually, Shelly and I sat down and put all of the information for her balance flow yoga online. And Shelly's comment to me was, wow, this looks so clean. So if you are wanting people to sign up, register for something, pay online, fill out a waiver form, get the Zoom link automatically, get email and text reminders, I highly recommend OfferingTree. And our podcast listeners get a special discount, which is over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Pelvic Health Professionals. And it's exciting that I can tell you about this because Shelly Prosko was one of our big cheerleaders when I said, hey, I have this idea. I want to bring information to yoga teachers and movement professionals and pelvic health professionals. And I want to hire guest experts to come and talk to all of us. And that is all over at pelvichealthprofessionals.com. So let's welcome Shelly Prosko, who I think is our most often returning guest. So I feel like we don't need a big, long introduction. But Shelly, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I think it's number 5.
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got the record for most on the podcast.
I don't know if I'm proud of that, if I'm kind of like sheepish, like, people are going to get tired of hearing me.
Tell our listeners, for those who don't know who you are or what you do, tell us about the work that you do.
Okay. So I, by profession, I'm a physiotherapist and a yoga therapist, and I have been integrating yoga principles and practices into my physiotherapy clinical practice since the late 1900s. That's what I say now, because that sounds fun.
I love it.
Yeah. So, and let's see. Okay. So it's been quite an evolution. So a combination of, like I said, clinical practice, and some of my passions and specialties lie in pelvic health, helping people with pelvic health issues, and also chronic pain or persistent pain, as we also call it, and then helping healthcare professionals with professional burnout, and also this idea of compassion and self-compassion in healthcare, and specifically in pain care. But I also have now, the last decade or a little more, I am a continuing education provider. So I do spend a lot of my time now teaching other healthcare professionals and yoga professionals, movement professionals on how to maybe better help those that they serve.
I am so grateful for the work that you do. I've learned a lot from you. I'm excited that our connected yoga teachers actually get a chance to practice yoga with you. So we'll talk about how they can jump online and practice with you. But first of all, I want to tell them about your balance flow yoga, because the moment you started telling me about this, I was like, oh, I want to bring this in whatever way we can so that we can learn from you and practice together. So how did this start to come about? Like, What was the idea behind this balance flow yoga?
Okay, so this balance flow yoga series is based on some research that I collaborated in at the University of Saskatchewan. So that's my alma mater. That's where I went to school in the 90s. And Kathy Arnold, she's what they call the principal investigator of this research. She has been conducting research on balance and risk balance, or let me say that, balance and fall risk factors and preventing fall related injuries. She's been conducting that research for well over a decade, maybe two. So she has 4 different research studies to date, or 3 different research studies. And then the 4th one, she was interested in yoga. So she thought, okay, we have evidence that shows movement is really good to help prevent falls, to help improve our balance, and also reduce the risk of injuries. And the programs that she had were more for like just the physical, right? So it was obviously things like balance, upper and lower body strength, reaction time, the translation of the force in the arms in case you fall forward, controlling the descent, and of course, mobility. So that was her research. But then she was wondering about yoga because she thought, there's a lot of research out there that shows yoga can help balance. It seems to be a really popular choice for lots of people, but especially people in their peri and postmenopausal years, which that was a big part of her research. And she also was interested in offering something that could be done in the community. And that was really cost effective. So it was a really community oriented approach. So since I was very lucky. I was at the right place at the right time. Like I said, I went to school there. She was actually one of my professors in the 90s. And she contacted me. She knew I did this stuff that I do. And she said, hey, would you like to create the yoga intervention? So that was a few years ago now. And I said, yes. And I guess that I'll just maybe stop there.
Well, I have to tell our listeners that your eyes just lit up when you said like out in the community. Can you tell our listeners what you've been doing? Is it the last month or has it been longer than that?
Yeah,
sharing
thanks.
this out in your community?
Oh, thank you. I'm glad we chat. I'm glad we're friends and we chat because you get to know these things about my personal life. So yeah, I'm so excited. So much has been online. And like I said, a lot has been for professionals that I've been doing, which I love. But yeah, what I've been doing now, this week will be week number 4. And I am teaching this balance flow yoga series in person here in my local community at a local yoga studio. So it's a dream come true. I used to teach a lot of yoga classes in person in the studio in the 90s, and then even just back in the day. But I really haven't taught anything regular since it doesn't matter, like 2013, 14. It's been a while. So that's what I'm doing, and it's just a lovely group of people, men and women, all genders, and everything in between. And it's just, it's wonderful to be able to offer, to translate the research, right? So I'm looking at what we did in the research, the findings, like it was a successful study, and that some of the measurements did improve. And so that's really cool to have that. And then to actually offer that in the community for everybody.
I love this. I also love that our connected yoga teachers can join you, can do this, and then can share it in their communities. So when you had this idea and you said to me, we'll do 7 classes and the first one will be about the theory and the information part, and then the rest is all set up like yoga classes. This is what I really love. So tell our listeners why you think it's important to do that.
Yeah. So and thanks for mentioning that. See, I had so many requests once this started coming out and people were seeing it. I had requests from professionals to say, hey, are you going to do a training? So for over a year, I have a list of people on the waiting list. Are you going to do a training? Going to do a training? And I don't know, just after more and more reflection, I want to do a training, but I wanted really to have everybody experience the actual class over the 6-week period. And so I thought, well, how can I do this so that I can integrate, like, we can actually all practice together and not do like the theory and lecture, like all that during the practice. We'll do it before, but then also have it open, of course, to the general population. And so I'm really excited to bring it so everybody can come and benefit. So to your question, though, more specifically was, why do I think it's important for yoga teachers? And I think, some of the obvious reasons, we balance reduces as we age. And I'm not talking about, we're not have to be 80 or 90 years old. Just as we age, from 30, 40, every decade, balance and our balance reactions. So we're not as fast, different systems, like we land a little more stiff and rigid, like there's decreased absorption. So this is what's been shown in the research. So we lack that ability to control the descent. And that has a lot to do with strength. As we know, as we age, strength it does decrease. That's just the way that things that happen in our body and the physiological processes. The vestibular system, so that inner ear, that balance system reduces, our vision changes, our proprioceptive awareness, and just overall mobility. And even with all of that, we might, with the less balance, then we fall maybe once, twice, and then we get more afraid, or we don't go out and do the things we like to do. And it's the different levels, right? So wherever you're at, if it could be, okay, I'm not going to go skiing anymore, like, because I'm afraid I'm going to fall, or maybe further down the line, okay, I'm not going to go walk on that usual path I do in that uneven, and it goes down the hill because I'm going to fall. And then our world just kind of gets smaller and smaller, and we do less and less because we're afraid to fall. And then that causes it perpetuates the cycle. So even less strength, less balance, less mobility, etc. So with practicing yoga, looking at the whole person and what that can help with in our study too, showing that it can even increase confidence. So yoga is really cool because we can look at all aspects of our existence. So yes, the strength and the balance and the mobility and all of that, but also we can look at different meditative practices and different breathing practices that can not only help us with our movement, but also with the emotions of confidence and self-compassion. So there's a lot of, in this intervention, I made sure that we looked at some of the different principles of yoga. I can go into that later, or we can wait to the Balance Flow yoga class because I'll be going through that. So why it's important? Yes, because I think the population, we need it. I think also because yoga is already a popular choice. A lot of people in our communities, they're interested in yoga. We know that, but it's not always accessible. It's not always appropriate for, people that maybe want something a little more, or let's say a little less maybe acrobatic. So nothing wrong with doing handstands and headstands, but there's a large part of our population that, they don't necessarily want or even need that. And like I said, it can be a really cost-effective practice for our community. And our evidence that we have to date suggests that yoga can be helpful. So we do have other evidence beyond Dr. Arnold's research that shows yoga does help with things like balance and strength and mobility. So I think it's really a wonderful modality. And the last part of our study, I just want to mention this too. We did a qualitative analysis, and what we had was focus groups after, and we asked the participants their perceived benefits, and there was a series of questions and so forth. And I'll go through this in the first session in the lecture part when I present the study in more detail. But I just wanted to mention here that the thematic analysis that we did, these themes emerged. And the themes that emerged were benefits beyond the physical. So things like self-compassion and a sense of community and creating a safe space. And I'll stop there. There's more. But I think, again, to answer your why yoga, that last point is because yoga can add all of these other benefits. So that's my typical, usual long answer that I give on all of your podcasts. But do you want to add anything or maybe summarize it more clearly? Because I just talked for 10 minutes.
What I love is that lots of yoga students come to class and say, I want to improve my balance. And so those people are showing up in our classes already. But what you're saying is there's so many benefits beyond that even that they're not thinking that they're signing up for. Like this confidence to move. As you were talking about this, I was just thinking back to, I had a herniated disc and my walking was impacted. I couldn't walk for a while. And my physio was like, Shannon, you need to stop like looking down and being afraid to walk here. Like you're not 95. You need to pick it up a little bit. And I really felt the difference in how exactly what you said, the world was getting smaller for me in that time. And I thought, I'm not going in this direction. So I think this is so applicable to all ages, all genders. Yeah, I'm just really grateful that we get to sign up and be part of it.
It's going to be so exciting.
Connected yoga teachers, I wanted to pop in here for a moment in amongst Shelly and I talking to tell you about OfferingTree. So you are going to see how OfferingTree works if you go to sign up for Shelly's 7-week Balance Flow Yoga. And I love how easy this is to put an offering together. So people can look at the booking, look at all of the information, the description, all of the information is there, a nice graphic. Then they can sign up, pay online, fill out the waiver, get reminders, get the Zoom link. Reminders come through text and email. And as I was telling Shelly about this, who doesn't use OfferingTree but did have questions for me about it, I was telling Shelly, you can send out whatever emails you want as well. We can send out an email like a week before the series starts to tell people, hey, just a reminder, and here are the props and things to bring, and here's how to be ready. Also, it works really well if you have any just average people signing up who need that reminder, like, hey, class is today at this time. It's really nice when you're doing live events as well. If you are offering any classes, workshops, trainings, anything online or in person, I highly recommend checking out OfferingTree. There's a 14-day trial. And also, if you decide to stay on after that 14 days, use our coupon code. That's at offeringtree.com/Shannon to get a discount.
And, and it is a bit different. I just want to mention too, it's not just challenging balance, right? So there's a lot of different things that we do in the movement piece. Yes, that challenges balance that we might do in a typical yoga class. You do your tree pose and you move, but we have a lot of other ideas and different things. And a lot of the falls are forward. Actually, over 50% of the falls in the older adult is forward, and the injuries are upper body. We always think hip fracture, but that's only 8%. Right. Believe it or not, in the older adults. So we do a lot of upper body stuff and stuff you wouldn't do in a typical yoga class. Like, we practice landing and we practice controlled static balance, but also we do some quick stuff and reaction time. So it is different. It is unique. And that's what I'm excited to share for everybody, including all the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast listeners.
That's really exciting. Also, there's a connection with pelvic floor.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness.
Tell our listeners about that, because once you said that, I was like, oh, now I
can't believe
this all is of my favorite things.
Yeah, this is one of the main findings of our study. So we actually, in this study, we measured incontinence and it improved through this program. And as you know, and maybe some of the listeners know, we've talked about this on previous podcast episodes, but we are not there. We have some evidence that shows it may not be the best strategy to cue pelvic floor contraction or to cue the abdominals to engage in when we're doing all kinds of different movement, but even when we're trying to hold our balance. So what I've done in this balanced flow yoga series, when I was developing, I co-developed it with another professional, another researcher that I actually went to school with. She's a classmate of mine. And so when we were developing this, it was really important to me when we trained the yoga teachers to teach this over 8 weeks. It was really important to me to make sure they understood the cueing and make sure they understood the relationship of the pelvic floor to the respiratory diaphragm and how they move. And I'll go through that through the session. I won't go through it now, but that was really important to have that education. And so that the teachers can cue people mostly around breath, and the type of breath is important and how you cue it and so forth. So that we know that there's a very intimate connection between the pelvic floor and the respiratory diaphragm or the breath. And so the capacity or the ability of the pelvic floor to function and fulfill all of its roles, including help with urinary continence, plus a whole bunch of other things, but for continence, which is what we measured. So the pelvic floor's capacity to be able to do that depends on its ability to move up and down in timing with breath and other synergistic muscles in the body, the whole body and the hips especially. So the Balanced Flow Yoga series incorporates like all of that past research and literature and stuff that I put into my courses that I teach on pelvic health. So there's a lot in there, but we get it in and it's fun, and how fun for the participants to be able to also enjoy the benefits of potentially improved pelvic health, maybe, and reduce incontinence. Like you come to this Balanced Flow Yoga practice and then you say, oh, my incontinence has improved. So that's, I think, kind of exciting.
It's a huge bonus for people. I am so glad that you're offering this. So I will make sure to link to where people can sign up for this, which is over at Pelvic Health Professionals. Maybe we'll also stick it on our Connected Yoga Teacher, but we'll definitely put it in the show notes for today's episode. And let me just go through the dates here. So it's happening live, but there is a replay that people can catch. So it's on Tuesdays, April the 11th to May the 23rd, 10:30 a.m. Mountain, because that's what time Shelly's in, which is 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And it's the 7 weeks. So the first class is going to be theory and learning. And then the next 6 weeks is practice. Is there anything that people need to know, like who is this for or not for, or what should I bring when I sign up?
Yeah, I think, the intention of this series is to help with standing balance. So we are going to be challenging standing balance. Of course, I'm going to be suggesting have a chair nearby. There's walls. I'm very good at instructing and guiding. However, that said, if you can't stand and walk independently, you wouldn't get the intended benefits of this class. You can still come, all are welcome, but you would be, doing things in a chair again, which is great. But we're going to be challenging, the standing balance and doing different things at the wall and practicing getting up and down off the floor, which is even good for 30 and 40-year-olds who already get up and down off the floor, right? We got some fun challenging things. So basically, lots of options. And on one hand, I want, I want to be really welcoming and I don't want people to be afraid and think, oh, my balance isn't good enough, I might fall. That you can use the wall, and we don't always have to be right on one foot. Like there's options. But like I said, if you have had a stroke or you are in a walker where you can't stand, or you're in a wheelchair where you can't stand and walk independently, then there might be a better class for you that that doesn't challenge standing balance so much. And then I would also say it's for anybody who is interested in everything we've talked about, like pelvic floor, or even just anyone who wants to come join a weekly guided practice. So, just it's yoga. I love teaching yoga, and anyone can come. And we do all the components, nice centering, movement, breathing, relaxation at the end. So it's just a really beautiful weekly practice.
That's amazing. I can't wait until our connected yoga teachers can hang out with you, learn from you, practice yoga with you. Thank you for doing this. And thank you for saying that you'll offer it to our connected yoga teachers. There is an early bird price. It's $150 US, which translates to be about 200 Canadian dollars if people sign up by the end of March. So I'll make sure that we include all of those links. Thank you so much, Shelly, for the work that you do.
Thanks. Well, thank you for having me and for the platform and making it easy for me to share. You're so wonderful in so many ways. Thanks.
Alrighty, connected yoga teachers, I am so excited about this because we get to show up in real time together from April the 11th to May the 23rd to practice yoga live with Shelly Prosko. I think it's a great way to connect with Shelly, to connect with each other, to connect to ourselves as well, and have that time for our own personal yoga practice. So to find out how to sign up for this, head on over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com, look under yoga, and right underneath that is the balance flow yoga. And we'll also link to this in the show notes for today's podcast episode. And remember, sign up before the end of March to get that discount. You save $50 US. So that's a nice big savings. Thank you again, Shelly, for offering this to our connected yoga teachers. I'm really excited that we get to practice together, for also all of the work that you do. I love that you incorporate compassion with pelvic health, with pain education, and yoga. What an amazing gift to the people who sign up for your offerings. Shout out of thank you to our team over here, Suzanne Crunch and Sinead, for making this podcast episode possible. And thank you to you, dear listener. I'm guessing that you had no idea what this podcast was about when you saw Balance Flow Yoga with Shelly Prosko. You've maybe heard Shelly before on the podcast, but you had to listen all the way to the end. And I'm super grateful for you hanging out here, spending time together today. If you have any questions about this offering, if you have something that you are struggling with in your yoga business, if there's a question that you want us to answer on the podcast, please reach out. We have a voicemail button over at theconnectedyogateacher.com. The voicemail button is on the right-hand side. And let me know on there, are you okay with me sharing the audio on the podcast, or is it a private message just for me and not for the podcast? Alrighty, connected yoga teachers, I would love to know what you will be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community, so that you can share the yoga that lights you up.